It kills, like you said, it's everyone who even steps outside the line ever so slightly. I mean, there's a bit of a kind of slasher logic here, right? But there's the two teenagers who are not where they're supposed to be. They're off, having fun. The most elaborate death is reserved for the woman who stood up to the car.
Welcome to an episode of the Skiffy and Fanty Show's Totally Pretentious.
It's time to honk Satan's horn.
But why does that sound dirty?
It's your mind, not mine.
Okay, well, fair enough. I'm Sean.
I'm David.
And on today's show, we are going to be discussing the latest film that David has picked for us to watch, 1977's supernatural horror thriller, The Car. For those watching on video, David actually has a model of the car itself, which is delightful and also amazing. This film is directed by Elliot Silverstein, written by Michael Butler, Dennis Shryak, and Lane Slate. The film stars James Brolin, aka the father of the other Brolin, Kathleen Lloyd, John Marley, and Ronnie Cox, along with real-life sisters Kim and Kyle Richards.
Before we begin our discussion, a reminder to please share your comments, questions, or suggested topics with us at skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions. If you aren't already, join us live each Friday at 7 Central on Sean's Alphabet Streams Twitch to be a part of our interactive live streaming format, or join us anytime for interaction on our Discord. Finally, please join our Patreon and be part of our exclusive content and let others know about how fabulous we are.
Well, David, this is the film you picked for us to watch, as you say, as not necessarily punishment for the fact that I made you watch 1999's The Mummy and also Independence Day, which are both
To be
films you
clear,
hate for different reasons.
yeah, no, Independence Day I don't hate. I hate a particular moment in Independence Day with a passion. But the first half of Independence Day I quite enjoy.
Okay. Well, I'll read the speech to you later, and so it'll be fine. No, I'm really not going to do the speech.
This is not the political era
Nope.
in which to read that speech. No.
Absolutely the frick not. I'm not doing it. Nope. That ship has sailed. No. Anyway, well, tell me why this film, and then I guess summarize the film.
Okay, well, why don't summarizing it briefly, because I mean it's pretty simple. A demonic black car descends upon a small southwestern town and starts running people over. And James Brolin, who I guess he's kind of deputy sheriff for the first part of the film, until he is unwillingly promoted by the car, is trying to stop this, and that's and so that's kind of it, right? It's a very 70s film with all of the car chases that we would expect, only with a driverless demonic car being the subject of being both the pursued and the pursuer. There's a lot more going on under the hood than I've suggested there, but that's
Under
the
the
essential
hood.
of. Yes. Yeah, you saw what I did. Of course you did. So that's the basics. Now, why did I pick this? Well, I
Yeah.
mean, the simple answer is that it's one of my absolute favorite films.
Hmm.
I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen this now, probably more than the entire Star Wars franchise combined. Um,
Wow.
but also it's a film that, though I have been very, very fond of it for a long time, my perception of it took a sharp turn a few years back. So let me kind of set this up by reading to you a little bit of the liner notes to the DVD edition, and these were also the VHS edition of the car,
Okay.
which is where I first encountered them. So these are by Jim. Uh, uh, Kniptal. I apologize if I've mispronounced that, of New York Press. If Ingmar Bergman had made a horror movie about a murderous automobile, he would have made The Car. Marked as much
Okay.
by inexplicably long silences and an overwhelming sense of dread as it is by bloody tire tracks and blasts of a demonic horn, director Elliot Silverstein's film is much more interesting than most wanted to believe. For camera work, beautiful desert scenery, a peculiar script, and for some reason, technical advice from the Church of Satan's Anton LaVey all come together to create a film which, while on the surface seemed like most any other monster movie of the time, was actually something much more profound. And he goes on. Now, when I first read this, right, my initial reaction to that sentence of Ingmar Bergman had made a horror movie about a murderous automobile was laughter, right? Because though I was very fond of The Car at that time, I also regarded it as a pretty silly film, right? It was, it was a lot of fun, but it was also silly. And there was this, I could never quite figure out like, what was the deal uh, with the R.G. Sprawling. Am I getting his name right?
Hmm.
The R.G. Armstrong character, Clements, and what happens with him at the end. There were various oddities. So that was where I was when I first encountered that. Half dozen years ago or so, maybe a little bit more, the light bulb went on. There was this eureka moment, and it was this kind of, oh, now I get it. So those liner notes that I read, which amused me back in the day, I'm not amused any longer. I'm realizing, oh no, he had it exactly right. That it is a much more profound film than it appears on the surface. So yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about it.
So, at some point, David, you and I are going to have to talk about how you do research on films because some of the films we've covered, I'm able to like uncover some research that isn't just Google, basically.
Mhm.
And this is one where I really struggled to find research other than like mentions in film books because it was in,
Yeah,
James Brolin's career. Because I genuinely was trying to figure out like this film. I've seen it before because I remember we talked, I don't know, probably during COVID when I
yeah,
got the
quite a
horror
long
bug.
time ago, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the ones you recommended to me. Um, I think I also watched Duel, which has some
Mm.
similarities plot wise,
Oh yeah,
sort of.
yeah.
Yeah. And I remember watching this and being like, this film is kind of interesting. It is silly on its surface. It's literally this ridiculous black car that David's probably going to hold up again. Chasing people down. And the first murders in the movie are like the most sensible murders because it's a couple of people on bicycles in these like cliff face roads. There's nowhere really for them to go other than off the edge of the cliff or to, what have you. But then you start to look at the character elements that I found really, really interesting in the story that tell us a lot about what kind of town they're living in, right? What are the
Mhm.
social expectations of that town? The strife and turmoil, the gender relations that exist in that town. I mean, you were mentioning the Amos Clemens character,
Yeah,
right? Our first introduction to him, he's quite literally beating his wife. He is a
yeah.
loudmouth, real mean SOB. In no way likable, and so much of our presentation of him is of a very particular kind of American male character that you would see.
Mhm.
And I think that's what I found more interesting this second time around because the car chasing people down, they're fun, and hearing the big loud car room room noises is
Yeah.
fun and everything, but from a technical perspective, they're not that interesting, right? Because it is just a modded up car chasing people down, and we don't really get to see them
It's a
run
cool
over.
looking modded up car, though. I
It's
mean,
cool looking, yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah, but the special effects aren't what I would say is what is compelling. It's more what is this car the presence of this car revealing about all of the
Mm.
people in their
Yes.
responses to it. And it turns out revealing quite a bit, and in some ways really really quite nice little details, and in other ways really disturbing details. And so I will shut up now because I'm sure you said yes, which means you might have opinions.
Oh no, I agree completely with all of that, and yeah, and I think the a lot of the revelations are kind of are between the lines, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just to take one example, there's the character of Chaz, played by Henry O'Brien, who where we first see him, right, is he's getting he's on the receiving end of a racist phone call, right,
Mm.
and this is and when we see his response to like being thrown all the traditional anti-indigenous epithets that
Yeah.
you can imagine is that he kind of sees it like he says, "You're going to be in heap big trouble," right? Or when he's at one point he's holding Amos, he's like, "Sit him down," right? So he's taking the racist stereotype and hurling it back at his opponents. And so we kind of sort of see the necessary defense mechanism, right? That is present there, but we also wind up seeing how far it goes in that. I mean, he has, but also now he is, part of the white power structure, right? As a
Hmm.
police officer, and he has seemed to have necessarily perhaps embraced that, like that ethos or that worldview more strongly than maybe anyone else there, right? Because
Mm.
as the once it becomes apparent that this car is a supernatural thing, right? But we have the characters resisting that, right? James Brolin among them. But Chaz is the one who resists the most, right? Who is one of the first of the principal characters to have been told by, because of the old woman who, and he's translating, but he doesn't translate when she says that there was no driver, right?
Yeah.
He rules that out. And when Kathleen Lloyd has been killed, right, in an impossible way because the car flew up 4 feet in the air to drive through her house. And so Brolin's commitment to rationality is crumbling right there and before. And Chaz is the one who is providing all the reasons. Okay, it has to be this. It can't be that. Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on with a comparatively minor character. Right. Is so that I see that as just one example. Right. I think the biggest thing is with Amos and what I had failed to understand, and I get okay. Side issue. What you said about the research for this, I agree completely too. It is I think it's a highly underappreciated film.
Yeah.
It does have
I
something
agree.
of a cult following, but not a lot seems to have been written about it. I was obsessed with it when it first was released theatrically in 1977. I desperately wanted to see it, but I didn't get to see it until it came and went so fast. I didn't get to see it until 79 on TV. Yeah, so it's there isn't much out there, but I remember sort of seeing so people do commenting on the fact that Amos, who was presented to us so explicitly, right, as a completely irredeemable, awful person, right, the the worst of the worst, we end up with the end of the film, and he and the rest and the other characters are sharing smiles and hey and hail fellow well met, and he's reintegrated into the group, and there's been no redemption arc, right? They needed him because of his expertise with explosives, but there
Yeah.
has been. But nothing about the evil that he represented has altered 1 degree.
Right.
And for the longest time, I thought, well, that sure is a weird scripting decision until the eureka moment when I finally realized, oh, that's the point. Right? And the film kind of really clicked into place at that moment.
That's really interesting because you are right that he is immediately he's evil. I mean that there he is irredeemable in such remarkable ways, right? The
Mm.
violence against his family, it's pretty clear that the child who plays his son, who like I don't even think he says any words, right? He's also
Yeah.
traumatized. We witness the abuse, and then there's physical evidence, right? Everett Peck, played by John Marley, the sheriff who's killed, like is basically pleading with but just sign this and we'll put you in a hotel and we'll take him away and he'll face some consequences for once. And she won't do it. We can understand because she's a battered woman in this context who we don't hear from at the end of the story. His depths of his cruelty seem to have no bounds because the other element of his introduction is the gentleman with the French horn, who's I can't remember what the piece is he's playing. You know, he's just playing a
I think it's
beautiful
the William
classical piece.
Tell overture, or
Yeah,
yeah,
something
or
like
yeah,
that.
we hear it. I know we hear it in at least one Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Yes, yes, it's that beautiful one. It feels like you're frolicking in a field, and he's
Dee
playing
da
it
da
on a
dee da
French
da
horn.
dee da da dee da da
Yeah, exactly.
dee
Yeah,
da dee.
and he comes out and like this guy's like, hey man, be nice to your wife. He didn't even tell him I'm gonna call the cops. I'm gonna just be nice. Like that's a little much, man. And he's just like, I will end your life essentially, and is like, you need to just get to stepping because I will destroy you. So our introduction to him is of as such a vile man. And that's
Mhm.
part of why when they bring, because he spends most of this movie in a jail cell, basically, because he just disappears through the whole middle because he's in a jail cell. And they finally retrieve him, and he's just yelling, and Chaz is like
Yes.
holding him, like silent type, and dragging him forward and sets him in a chair, and he's like going off like I have rights and all of these things, and it's Josh Brolin's, or not Josh Brolin, James Brolin's character who says, "We need you," and that
Yeah.
sinister little grin goes on his face. It made me wonder, why does he get to be reintegrated into this group?
Yeah.
Because it would seem to undercut what really felt to me like where the film was going, which is all of these very old school classical conservative elements, these like 1950s sort of archetypes, are slowly being torn down piece by piece by piece. But so many of the characters who die or don't get any kind of real arc in this story are the characters who would be the ones challenging those 50s attitudes.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So, I mean, basically, I mean, the car is like is an embodiment of white patriarchy,
That's horrifying.
and it is the system, right? And like, because you like, who does it kill? Right? It kills, like you said, it's everyone who even steps outside the line ever so slightly. I mean, there's a bit of a kind of slasher logic
Yes.
here, right? But there's the two teenagers who are not where they're supposed to be. They're off, having fun. The most elaborate death is reserved for the woman who stood up to the car, right?
Yes.
Who spoke in emasculating terms
But you only feel
in the
like a big man
graveyard.
when you're in your car.
Yeah, right. So all of that, and also note that when the sheriff is killed, right, the car swerves around Amos, right, it avoids hitting him
Yep.
in order to take down the sheriff. Okay, so at the end of the film, when we have the apocalyptic dynamite explosion, and they take out the car, but we see, right, this demon manifested in the flames. Right, and we have poor Ronnie Cox trying to say, but I saw in the flames, I saw, and Brolin is there. No, no, it's over, it's over, right? But it isn't over because we see them standing there in this kind of post-apocalyptic setting. We hear that bah, 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 horn again in the fade to
Yep.
black, and then the movie's closing credits end over the car on the road again, this
In
time
LA.
in a city, right? And it isn't over because, and that's exemplified by the way in which Amos is part of the system, right? Because nothing changed, right?
All the changes reverted.
Yeah, everything is back to the way it was before, right? And I mean, the one person who sees what's really going on is Luke, the Ronnie Cox character, who is the one who fails the most at being part of the white male establishment. Right?
Yeah.
He cries. He's an alcoholic. He is overwhelmed emotionally by what's going on. So it's
Yes.
so at the end, Brolin just kind of, okay, everything is back to the way it was. right? And even we go back to the beginning in the first, and when he and I'm sorry, John Marley are confronting R.G. Armstrong, about the death of the hitchhiker, right? And Marley is, of course, clearly horrified and focused by what he's seeing on what's happened to Amos's wife, right? And Brolin ignores that completely, right? That's beside the point,
Yeah.
right? So Brolin is not the sort who's going to challenge that system, right? And so the system is absolutely still in place, and the demon goes on. Right?
Oh, so I have a quibble, a slight quibble, because I think the car, insofar as it can make choice, I think the car is unsure about Brolin's character. Which is why
Right.
in both instances, when the car and Brolin are like doing a standoff, essentially,
Mm.
it doesn't immediately try to run him over. And I think that's because there's elements about his character that are like the example you gave, where it's very clear he's sort of reproducing the system, protecting the system. But before that, the images we actually get of him are actually really, really quite sweet. He's with this teacher that he clearly is head over heels for. She really cares about him, but they're trying to figure out, like, how do I introduce you to my daughters? Because, she wants them to like her. And obviously, there was a mother at some point who is gone, dead, or what have you. And so that's there. So there's a sort of a traditional relationship being brewed here, not least of all because they've
Mm.
just been in the naughty places in the bed, which means they were doing that stuff out of wedlock. And as you know, that's a sin, David. That's a bad sin. And
Except we
so,
also know in this particular instance they didn't because he fell asleep.
well, he did, but the implication is that they do the
They were
naughty.
going to, yes. Yeah.
They were going to, but they're, I don't know. I really thought that opening
Anyway,
sequence with
sorry,
them was
beside the
really
point.
adorable. But the I guess the point I'm trying to get at is, like, I think he's this character who has all of that masculine machismo stuff
Mhm.
that we would expect of a very conservative 50s era archetypal kind of male. But he has this very sensitive side, and it's very clear that he does have cares about the people, but he's sort of being stretched across them and hasn't settled. And I think that's why the car doesn't immediately kill him, because everybody else who in any way speaks up directly and clearly
Right.
with no ifs, ands, or buts is immediately like a target for the car. The car literally waits to kill them. Whereas with him, the car seems like it's not, almost like he's unsure, and so is the car. Like the very first instance when they face off and he pulls out his gun, right? And he just starts shooting off shots kind of around it. Right, the
Oh, he's
car at
right at
any
it.
moment could just run him over, but it doesn't. It's almost like it can feel his insecurity in that moment.
Yeah, that's a really good point. No, I agree completely. And I think, yeah, like there is the potential either way, right?
Yeah,
I think, like, yeah, like there's the single father on the one hand and the representative of the system on the other. So no, I think you're absolutely right.
yeah,
And so to further that, there's it now occurs to me that there's yet a darker reading of what's going on because one of the characteristics of like we see with the car, right? That horn, right?
yeah,
That it uses to kind of to announce itself, right, as it arrives, and then every time it kills someone, then it makes that after it has done its thing, it does that horn sound again, right?
yeah,
We hear it does that. So when it goes off the cliff to its presumed demise, we hear that horn sound, right?
yeah,
Which is that's been the sound of victory, right? And that demon we see in the flames, that's a grinning demon, right? And what has happened with Brolin's arc? He's wound up turning to Amos, right?
yeah.
We need you, and then is standing there companionably with Amos. So have we also then seen a kind of masterful bit of psychological warfare on the part of the car to bring Brolin to that point?
And we have to assume he becomes like the old school type sheriff who doesn't buck the system, doesn't change the world because he's now effectively in charge.
Yeah, and I think I mean, for all of the sensitivity that he portrays, he also, I mean, our police officers through and through are essentially ineffective, right? The Until we get to that final confrontation, but even if it has nothing to do with the car, right? They're unable to change anything,
Yeah.
right? But we do at least see, in the case of Emmett, sorry, of Everett,
Yeah.
the frustration with that, the desire to make things better, right? We don't get that from Brolin's character at all, right? He's just
Yeah.
doing his job all the time. Yeah,
Yeah, he doesn't buck the trend. He doesn't move anything. The things that are changing are all in his personal life, and
yeah,
those he tries to preserve. Right, he tries to protect his girlfriend, and he obviously is protecting his kids, and he loves them. But that isn't changing the system. If it right, it isn't changing the power structure he works for. It's a thing that weirdly enough, you can like keep inside the walls of your home until the car drives through them, and then they
yeah,
can't be anymore. Which I found very interesting that his character is so seemingly going in so many directions, but the places where the change seeps into his life is his personal life. It's the space that we think of as the domestic space. That's where his sensitivity mostly shows. It's where we see him laughing and hugging and showing love to his kids. And when we see Everett showing that same empathy and passion, it's for the wife figure when he's so tenderly holding her hand and really speak. She's not trying to force her. He's like speaking very passionately but calmly to her, trying to get her to see reason that she should report her horrific monster of a husband. But he's doing it in the halls of power, not in the
right.
domestic space.
Yeah.
And then
No,
he
I think
dies right after.
he does right after that, right? He's punished for that, whereas Brolin's punishment is in the domestic space.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, well, the professional as well. He loses a lot of his colleagues, right? But the really, but I guess, yeah, he gets hit with a double trauma, right? The death of Everett, and then the death of Kathleen Lloyd.
Which is said she's adorable.
Uh, Yeah, I mean, and that scene I think is certainly, I would say that's the darkest in the film. I mean, it's also one where, for a movie about a killer car really builds up a supernatural atmosphere, right? The sound of the wind in the night, the sense of the vast empty space of the crossroads. Like
Yeah.
you get off the road, get into your house, but then
Yeah.
that doesn't matter either. And that shot after the car has blasted through the house of just the shattered home with the swinging light and this kind of long aftermath moment. We're kind of into pure gothic horror there, which is really fascinating to me to have in the same movie as that truly awesome stunt where the car rolls over two cop cars simultaneously.
Yeah. Ridiculous stunt. I noticed too in that when the car kills her, a lot of her character is her voice. And, naturally because there's the logistical fact that she's dead and so she can no longer speak, but like the house, the very space she's been speaking and in this case with her fear to the
Mm,
Brolin character, right? It's now completely silent, and so her voice has literally been taken. And that's the thing where she has the most power, even with him, with the exception that she has her special ability to grab his nuts and playfully grab his nuts and make him stop playing
yeah,
around, which I found also adorable. But right, the thing in the cemetery where she is cursing out this car and like insulting she just assumes it's male, by the way, that the
right.
person that's in it, quote unquote, must be male, and so therefore she emasculates and she attacks and she's using
After the playful emasculation in the opening scene or
yes.
the opening minutes, yeah,
Right, she playfully emasculates Burla.
yeah,
I agree. Yeah, she does, but he's kind of into it. But which Good for him. There, look, I gotta say, man, I got the moment they were like together and they were kind of playing with each other. I was like, oh, I get why Brolin is kind of hot. Like, I kind of get it. Like, like the mustache wasn't doing it. I was like, oh man, this is too 70s. But then I was like, no, I get it. I get it. Like, he got up out of bed and you saw him in his little underoos, and you're like, yeah, I got it. I understood it. Anyway, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think like her character, the things that she says, how much she uses her voice, how much she's
Mm,
vocal and speaks for herself, even on the school ground, right, where she
yeah.
like one of her students draws like a side profile semi nude of her, and she thinks it's rather endearing and kind of funny because he doesn't understand proportions, and he like gave her big breasts and all of these kinds of things. And the older teacher's immediately like, don't you think this is wildly inappropriate? And she's like, no, he's basically 13. Like, he's learning about girls. I mean, this is the implication of what she's saying. He's learning about girls, and like a 13-year-old fantasizing about his teacher is really not that unusual. But she's just vocal, says it out loud.
Mm,
There's no sense of like the thing I'm thinking should be held back, which is what all of the older characters or the older teacher here would do, right? She wouldn't say what she
right.
really thinks here. She'd toe the line of like appropriate decorum, as it were.
Even to the point that when she's so caught up by Kathleen Lloyd's heroism in the graveyard, and she yells her own curse at the car, the best she can come up with is cat poo.
That's right. Yeah. I mean,
But
yeah.
yeah, but you know, you're right, and so yeah, I mean the and Lauren, the Kathleen Lloyd's character. I mean, yeah. So for all of those reasons, she is punished most, you know, horrifically, right?
Yeah.
That's the, it is it's the most vicious directed killing, right? It's not a target of opportunity. Here it's, she's tracked and hunted and killed in that way, and that is also, I think that, yeah, that's the last death that we get in the film, because then we move on to the final showdown, as it were.
Yeah, that final showdown is really, really tense, especially when Brolin's character is in the barn with the car, and
Right.
he's trying to open it, and it keeps like coming at him, wanting to go at him, and you're just wondering this whole time, why doesn't it just run him over? Why doesn't it just go? And it's the moment where I started to realize there's something else going on, which we kind of talked about already. But
Yeah.
that scene is so tense in a way that almost nothing else in the film is, with the exception of, maybe Lauren's death. I would say it's
Yeah.
pretty tense as
But this
well.
is the more sustained, like it lasts longer than her death, right? Her death
Yeah,
is like, it's pretty, it's comes on pretty quick, whereas here it's a longer, like he's in there for quite a long time.
yeah,
As Yeah, yeah. So, and I think it does fit in very well with what you were saying earlier, right? With like it, over and over again, it basically goes out of its way not to kill him.
yeah,
It torments him. It wounds him. It breaks down his what he believes in. Right. It takes things away from him. It destroys it destroys the woman he loves. It
yeah,
destroys his mentor. He, as much as he's resisting Luke's theories about the fact that this is an actual, a supernatural thing, we then see him having been reading the Bible
yeah,
shortly before, right? He's like, everything is crumbling around him until he, reinforces something by turning to Amos. Right.
yeah.
And the climax is, it's pretty intense, while also it being very much a kind of Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoon played straight.
It's a little ridiculous, but
Yeah.
give him the credit that they deserve. I was thinking about the Ronnie Cox character as well. That because I'm starting to wonder, like, of the characters that get lines in this, why doesn't the car kill them? Right? Because there's a bunch of people that live who have lines, and as we were saying with Ronnie Cox's character Luke, he is very emotional. He's got a drinking problem. He has trouble managing his emotions and having control over himself. And so, in a lot of ways, he's not adhering to what are the expectations of what, like, a real strong masculine man would
Mm.
do. But it dawns on me that part of the reason that maybe the car doesn't go out of its way to kill him is that he's effectively incapable of initiating any. He has no power. Change is
He's
not
not a
possible for his
threat.
character.
Yeah, he's not a threat. I mean, he's also never. Interestingly, he's never really at risk. Like he's nowhere, never anywhere where the car is. Right. The most endangered he gets is when the van he's in is run off the road.
Yeah.
Um, but then Brolin is right there. But it is true that he is. I mean, yeah, he is incapable of mounting a challenge to
Yeah.
the car. Right. He can see things for what they are. He sees the truth of it. And well, and I shouldn't say. I mean, he is mounting a challenge at the end, right? He is taking part in the dynamite trap thing, whatever it is that will at least temporarily remove the car, take the car off the road, as it were. Uh, which so he is, he's finding some determination in himself there. Though there too, he is immediately re-traumatized by the fact of what that he saw a giant fire demon in the sky.
Well, and he does the chicken thing with James Brolin, where but he doesn't want to be there, right? He keeps trying to get out of
Right?
that moment, and James
Yeah, he's
Brolin's like,
being
"No,
held
wait,
by Brolin.
wait,
Yeah.
yeah." And so it seems like when he helps, it's only when he's not in real danger, and
Mm,
otherwise he's forced to be there. He doesn't really want to be
yeah.
there, and it's a stronger, we have to say it, male figure that is holding him in place. Yeah.
It's funny. It's just occurred to me that that climactic chicken game followed by with the car going off the cliff is almost shot for shot recreated by the at the finale of Tremors.
It is. Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
It's the same sequence. Yeah, you're completely correct. Yeah. But Tremors is also a good movie, so
It is. Yeah. No shade on Tremors.
none at all. I've seen that film probably as many times as you've seen this film. I,
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's that's a firm family favorite here. So it's yeah. We've seen yeah. And at least Tremors I got to see theatrically, unlike the car.
oh man, that would have been great to see. Ah, such a good.
Oh yeah,
Now I'm gonna
especially
watch
since
it
we didn't
again.
know. Like it was a surprise when we found out what the monsters were. What we
Yeah,
saw was the all we had to go was the vague poster with a mouth, right?
they're big dinosaur slug monsters. Ugh. Okay, back to the boot. Back to the car. I'm trying to think of what else there is really to say other than the car itself is pretty fun. Because it's a 1971 Lincoln Continental Mark III, customized by Hollywood car customizer George Barris, who did bunches of classic cars. So it's basically a boat with wheels made into an even larger boat with wheels. That's very cool. The kind of car my grandmother would have driven.
Hers presumably had door handles.
That's correct. Yeah, because this one doesn't have door handles. That's right. And there's all of this effort to like identify the car. I found that really funny when
Yeah.
they're interrogating Amos, and he's just like, I don't remember, like gray or black car. It might have had two doors or four, and they're just like, did it have a sunroof? Like what? It nothing. He's just like, what am I being interrogated? I don't know why he talks like that in my head, but close enough. Uh, and it is weird how long it takes them to sort of figure out what the car even looks like because it is very distinct.
It is very distinct, but yeah, they don't. I mean, he only sees it in dust, and then I mean, they know it when they see it because of the way it behaves, right?
Yeah,
But and there is that actually again, it's another nice little touch. That moment when after Brolin has fired shots directly at the car, nothing's happened, and
yeah,
then he's sort of coming around to the door, right? And he's kind of looking at the window, and he reaches for the handle, right? With just automatically, right? He's not looking, and then his hand just encounters nothing, right?
yeah.
He just sort of his hand sort of floating in the air, like what? But, like this. this vehicle doesn't make any sense.
And then it smacks him.
Yeah, with the door. Yeah. Well, it's I mean the that particular I mean that actually fairly sustained action sequence, right? That it begins with see that's yeah, because it begins with the kids doing their parade, right?
Yeah.
On the race grounds, right? Which then leads to Lauren's confrontation in the graveyard, and then we get the car chase, right? So it's kind of this long, quite a long middle part of the film where there's like all this stuff that's happening,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I mean, it's interesting, there's so many films that go slack in the middle, right? Whereas this one reserves its big set piece of action for the middle.
Yeah.
And the car chases are I find them a lot of fun. I mean they're it's again pure 70s in in that content, right?
Yeah.
Uh and it does I mean when I made the Wile E. Coyote reference earlier, but I mean I think there's some of that here too, right? And it's always skating up to that edge of humor, right? Always
Yeah.
playing it straight, but like when the first a cop who has a fatal encounter with it, right? He's chasing up the hairpin curves, and he goes around the curve, and suddenly, boo! The car is
Yeah.
there, right? And it in a completely uncar-like way, right?
Yeah.
It's uh, and I mean its grill is really does work as a face, right? With the
Very
headlamps
much
as
sinister.
eyes. Yeah, right. And there's this kind of malevolent glee to the like it plays with him, it toys with him before it pushes his car off
Yes.
off the cliff, right? So there's the I mean, it's almost like the car thing at least thinks this is pretty funny, and so it's there with so there is that there is a kind of wry humor even if it doesn't completely cross over into outright slapstick.
Yeah, I agree with you. That the car almost seems to have emotion in the
Well,
way that you could
yeah,
make a car have emotion, if that makes sense. Like it's not like the
yeah.
car doesn't laugh, right? It doesn't have a voice, but it
Well, it does. It has that horn,
it has the
right?
horn. The
Which
horn
might
is
as
the
well be
exception.
blah ha 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 ha, right?
Yeah. It's a very emotive vehicle without having to be animated, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they didn't add like, the grill doesn't roll up like a smile, but we can kind of feel like the car is sneering or smiling or
Mm,
conveying an emotion with the way that it moves or manipulates the ground or what have you. And
yeah.
even in that sequence you're mentioning with the cop where it kind of catches him off guard, right? And the cop, like, he ends up right on the edge of the cliff and he tries to get out, and the car hits the door gentle, the most gentle touch. And the
Mm,
cop, like, basically the car slowly closes the door, knowing like it's gonna kill him. And he's like begging it not to, and then it shoves him off the edge of the cliff and he's done. It is it's a reminder of like how sinister the car is.
yeah.
It is not just killing people. It is in some cases, as you say, toying with them, playing with its food, as it were. It is finding all these very clever ways to terrify people. Um, I was thinking like even in the sequence where everyone's running from it at the parade scene, right? We can literally see it at the upper level going, the dust trail as it's traveling, as they're
Mm,
trying to run to get up to the cliffs and all of these things. And then the guys on the horses try to like look at us try to distract the car, and it's doing donuts and everything. They play this car. It should be ridiculous, but
right.
it doesn't always come across as ridiculous. There are times when the car feels so sinister. I mean, the one that sticks in my mind the most is that wide shot that slowly zooms in on the spot where the car is hiding in the shadow, and we
And
know it's
bef-
there.
yeah, I
And the moment
was just thinking of that.
yeah, I love
Go
when
on.
it flips the lights on, and instantly accelerates out, and it builds that tension really effectively. It makes the car feel sentient, I guess is what I'm
And I
getting
was
at.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think it. I was just thinking of that and the contrast we get with the other scene where we have that sentience, right? So if we have its amusement and it's toying with its prey, like you said, then in the scene where in the graveyard we sense its anger and its frustration, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it's practically having steam coming out of its temples as Lauren mocks it, right? And as that scene plays out, right, and the ways where Lauren is celebrated, and the punchline, and the cat poo, final lines, right? So that scene is played quite lightly, right, and which makes the reversal, right, the fact that then the most sinister moment is the one you just described, which is now where the vengeance for that scene comes from,
Yeah.
right? Feel all the more like a cruel twist of the knife because really, I mean, by all the rules, apart from the fact that this is a 1970s film, so therefore you're kind of screwed. But Lauren should survive, right? She's proven her mettle as a worthy heroine there. She's
Yeah.
saved the day. She should not just be unceremoniously mowed down in her living room, right? Taken out at basically at the end of Act Two.
Yeah.
That's not how it's supposed to work.
But she's got to go, David. She emasculated the car, and we cannot have uppity women. Yeah.
Just well, I mean, that's pretty much what happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, all of the women who don't participate, don't speak up, don't push in any way, the wife, the older school teacher, um, they all live.
Yeah, I mean, Marjorie has a close call, but in the end is all right. But she is also reduced to simply being a bystander.
Yeah.
She's not an active participant anymore. She's just there with the girls.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to. It's not like there's a lot of direct connections, but that scene, right, with her and hiding with the children as they and Brolin in this in an outbuilding, having a confrontation with the supernatural. The fact that 2 years later he'd be going through the same thing in the Amityville horror seems to knit the two films together a little bit in my mind.
Oh, interesting. That's a film worth talking about. It's an interesting film too.
I mean, I know, like that's a film that it's funny with that again I've always had a long affection for, but always found really quite amusing. And then the last time that I taught it was also when I had recently become a homeowner, and we're having like this completely fluky water issue in the main bathroom, which was involving like the whole thing being redone and taken apart. And so suddenly I'm watching this movie and going, "This isn't funny at all anymore. This is horrifying." and and Stephen King talks about attending it and hearing a woman a couple of rows back. Going, think of the bills. She's watching it. So
Been a while since I've
I
seen it.
finally understood the truth of that quite viscerally in that moment.
Uh, well, David, I feel like we've got it. Is there
I
anything
think we
else?
have.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I think that's good. It's I just want to say what a pleasure it's been to be able to uh, talk about and celebrate this film, which I think deserves to do better than to be so far under the radar that it seems to be.
I agree. It doesn't deserve to just sort of be in the dustbin. I think this is a more interesting film than certain other films, even from this same era, that like people still talk about. I think it's just well worth considering and worth watching.
For sure.
So, do you know what our next film is? Because you got to choose two.
Oh, I thought it was your turn. Oh, I didn't realize that it was. I have not picked something because I just assumed we were going back to back and forth. So does that mean neither of us
Oh,
has a pick?
well, it does mean that neither of us has a pick. Do we want to take a suggestion, or do you got an idea?
I will have to give that a little bit of thought. Because yeah, I quite honestly don't have anything in my back pocket. I could probably come up with something, but you know, so I'm kind of stalling for time here as I speak. Maybe you can now stall for time and talk about something while I think of something else.
I mean, we there's a lot of different kinds of films we could watch. I a film has come to mind,
Oh, yeah.
but it would mean retreading an actor's career we've already tread.
Sooner or later, we're going to have to, right?
Do you mind
I think if
another martial arts film?
oh, so it's another Jackie Chan film.
It could be, or it could be a Jet Li film.
Okay, I don't have a problem with another martial arts film.
Okay. Would you like to watch my favorite Jackie Chan film of all time?
Which one is that?
That would be Drunken Master 2 from
That's a great one.
1994. I love
Yeah,
that
that's a great
film with
one.
a passion. So if we could
Um,
do it, I'll do it. But otherwise, we could not decide.
yeah, my only hesitation is that we had after we had done Police Story, there
Oh,
was
yeah. Do we want to do a Jet Li film then instead?
yeah, I mean
Once Upon a
either
Time
that
in China.
or One Time in China or a Michelle Yeoh film
Ooh,
like
ooh.
Heroic Trio or Magnificent Warriors. That's her in Indiana Jones mode, kind of.
Which one? Magnificent Warriors? Okay.
Yeah,
That's from 87. Why don't we do that?
yeah,
Why don't we do a mutual
yeah. Magnificent.
selection? We'll do that one together.
Okay, Magnificent Warriors. Let's do that.
Awesome. The film is Magnificent Warriors 1987. It's a Michelle Yeoh film before she probably was famous in the West, I assume.
Oh this is well, yeah, because I mean, I think our like Western awareness of her, at least mainstream wise, probably begins with Super Cop,
Oh, okay,
right?
that makes sense.
And then immediately followed by Tomorrow Never Dies. I think that's kind of where she starts to really become known, right? So that's the '90s, and but yeah, I mean, there's some terrific stunt work, and I mean that's still, that's not the very beginning of her career, but she's the undisputed lead in that film, so it's good fun.
Perfect. We're gonna do that one. We will, for the first time in totally pretentious history, do one we decided on together.
All right, cooperation.
Yay! All right, folks. Thanks very much for being here. So, if you'd like to let us know what you thought about this episode, you got thoughts about this movie, etc., please send us an email at skiffyfanty@gmail.com or go to our Patreon page and join our Discord where you can, talk to us directly and tell us what you think about movies. That is patreon.com/skiffyandfanty. We are on Blue Sky, Threads, Mastodon, YouTube, all kinds of places. You can find all the links to those at skiffyandfanty.com/skiffythings. And then if you did not catch where we're recording this right now, every Friday at 7 p.m. Central, we record on Twitch as a live show, and then it's produced and released as a regular show. That is at twitch.tv/slash alphabet streams, if I could talk. I'm at SeanDuke.net. I'm also various places, SeanDuke.net/Duke things. And then this is also my Twitch channel. I stream Wednesdays and Sundays at 6 p.m. Central. And so, David, what about you?
You can find me on Facebook, on Mastodon at David.Annandale at social.horrorclub. Sorry, social.horrorhub.club, and on my website at davidannandale.com.
Perfect. So I'm just going to make this happy, David, because that's part of the new bylines. And
Okay,
so
make it happy.
um, I will make it very happy. I have procured via some means I won't explain a free ride for you in the car from the car.
Right on. That makes me very happy.
But you have to figure
That's
out how to get
terrific
inside
news.
because it does not have door handles.
I'm assuming it'll welcome me inside. I'm happy riding in the back.
Perfect. Well, on that note, happy ending and scene. If you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/skiffyandfanty or skiffyandfanty.com, our website, where you can get access to all of our fancy things. Our music comes from Holy Mole. You can support him and his work at patreon.com/holymole. Thank you for listening.